are the things you wish to hold on to. When you feel your life's in need of something new, you can think therefore you are. You can reach that shining star at the rainbow's end. Life can be short or long, it's up to you. You don't need anyone to sing your song. It won't be long before your dreams start coming true. To your surprise, they really do. Dream, that's what life was made for. That you dream is really courageous. Yeah, you dream it might be contagious. Dream, that's what life was made for. So go on and dream, but are you afraid of just dream? Dreams are a mystery untold, but in a dream fulfilled, your life takes hold, unfolds to your delight.
I must have a passion for doing what I do because I don't get paid monetarily for it. And I would do it anyway, and I am doing it. And I love doing what I do. Now, I would like to begin to connect the dots with some dollar signs eventually, but I would still do what I'm doing because I feel that it's important for people, again, to know who I am, who we are, and how we can all, as Rodney King said, just get along. We don't have enough, I would say, communicators. We don't have enough people, male or female, or whatever their ethnicity may be, that are Muslim to cover our stories. And the unfortunate thing is some people are telling our stories incorrectly. They're misrepresenting, they're misinforming, they are saying things that are totally not true. And so for people, and they don't have to all be young, I mean, they could be retired. And I'm always looking for people who may even have had another career that may be interested in getting involved in the media to work with us as volunteers to start doing the research and looking at who you are, where you fit in, what your life is about. Let me just give you this one anecdotal story about me. I was in Egypt a few years ago, and I was required, along with the other people that were in our interfaith group, to introduce ourselves. And I said my name was ZARINAH SHAKIR, and I'm an African-American Muslim woman. Well, one of the leaders of our group, who was taking us on the tours and to various meetings, she interrupted me by saying, "Oh, you have 3 strikes against you." And I said, "What?" And I started looking around at everybody else and I said, "What did you say?" And she said, "You have 3 strikes against you. You're an African-American Muslim woman." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. It really depends on what game you're playing." I said, "If you're playing baseball, you would be," I said, 3 strikes against you would take you out of the game. Yes. I said, "But if you're bowling, strikes are in your favor." And I said to everyone in the room, I said, "So folks, let's bowl."
Joining us now to talk about this is ZARINAH SHAKIR, producer and host of the Washington-based show Perspectives of Interfaith. ZARINAH, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for allowing me.
Certainly. As a Muslim American, how does this news of this terror threat, especially the connection to the Night of Power, feel? And what do you feel like you have to do in response to that connection?
Well, let me say first, Mr. Blackwell, that I would say Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak to all the millions, and as you mentioned, 1.6 billion Muslims throughout the world, that we are in the last days of Ramadan, where many people have been fasting, and to hear this sort of connection between a terrorist threat and the Night of Power, there is no connection. I've never heard this before. And so it does not sit very well, I'm sure, with the majority of Muslims in the world.
But with the radical element of, I guess, any group, they often pick times and holidays to highlight the reason they're doing it. You know that many of the Muslim faith who are on the extreme end want to use the Quran as an explanation for why they're doing that. What does that make you feel?
Well, let me say that I don't know those people from that extreme end, and it may be about, I don't know, 1, 2, 3% of what is supposed to be part of the Muslim community. But these are not people that, for most of us, that we know or understand. We are not partners with them. We are not trying to speak on their behalf or to condone anything that seems to be volatile or terrorist threat, even to us. There are many Muslims, unfortunately, throughout the Muslim world that are being killed in mass, and that's not something that we feel comfortable with at all.
You're obviously very outspoken about religion. You host a show on faith. You're here speaking with us about your faith. What is the biggest misconception about Islam? And you've spoken pretty much about Sharia law.
Well, I was afraid you're going to bring this up, and our program does not really focus on Sharia law. Can I say that our show is called Perspectives of Interfaith? So we interview Muslims, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Baha'i, Sikhs, on, the numerous religions. And our one sentence of our show is we try to dispel the myths and stereotypes of various faith traditions. Sharia, which I find very interesting, and because it has been brought up in a number of legislators or political leaders in the United States, are saying they want to ban Sharia. Well, we don't need Sharia. We are not asking people to include Sharia. We have a constitution in the United States, and it would be good for us to follow the Constitution as it has been prescribed for Americans. And let me just say that there are very few people that even understand what Sharia law is about, and Sharia, even by Muslims, is not something that is understood well. But the final thing I'd say about Sharia is what people are saying, particularly those who know very little about Sharia, is you're saying to me as a Muslim that you are not accepting my law, which comes from the Holy Quran. The Sharia comes exactly from Quran, and many of the things and passages that I've actually read and heard about have not been anything that I've grown up with as a Muslim.
And I'm glad we've had this conversation so you could dispel some of those myths and share with us some of the history of the Quran and the month of Ramadan. ZARINAH SHAKIR, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to our second film for African American pioneer Muslimas in Washington, D.C. And I'll just say that this is part 2. And this is part of Perspectives of Interfaith Television. And we received a grant from the Humanities Council of Washington, D.C. to do this particular film. We're going to be talking to 4 sisters who were not a part of the first film. And we will get started with where they were born, their age, how long they've been a part of the Muslim community, and from there we will do individual questions. Sisters, assalamu alaikum. And thank you again for being a part of this program. Take them though.
Sugar.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is ZARINAH SHAKIR. I am pleased to be here with all these people, and there's one person here though that's not quite a people. But with that being said, I produce and host a television show now. I produce and host a television show called Perspectives of Interfaith out of Arlington Independent Media in Arlington, Virginia. Thank you.
How long have you been doing that?
12 years, but I've been working in media for 40, 50 years.
Okay.
I do have a few things to add, but I would just say ditto to pretty much everything that they've all shared at this point. I have my own mantra that I've shared with a few people, and it's stay on task, spread the joy and the love, and keep it moving. And I try to do that every day, to be mindful of what it is that I'm working on. I can't seem to complete some of those projects that I'm working on, but I thank God that He woke me up another morning, another day, to be able to take at least a step in that direction. And I kind of feel that this is part of that, you know, where to say to young people or to give them any lead, advice, guidance, suggestion. Brother said to me the other day when I was in Sacramento, he said when you're talking to your son and there are things that you wish that he would do, or it's like, why aren't you doing it this way, or what happened? He said the next time when you approach him, and I would share that with everyone here, is he said, ask him, did you consider this? Or what do you consider to be your goal or your mission? As opposed to telling him or her what it is that they should be doing, or how they do, or how we do it, or when we were growing up, or when we were doing such and such, or let them make that decision, but ask them, did you consider such and such a way of doing it? And as I was saying to you earlier, and a couple of other people, in terms of some of the younger people, well, I'm not quite sure what young is or what old is, because when I'm at the senior center that I'm a part of in New Jersey, I'm a junior senior, because most of those people are 70, 80s, and 90s, and even 100. So they're old enough to be my mother, and some even almost my grandmother. And I'm 69 2 days ago. So I'm thinking, you know, and for younger people, some of them don't want to consider themselves young, like we didn't. Well, I didn't. I can't speak for anybody else. But when I was younger, I was feeling like I was older. But I think part of it was because of my responsibilities. I was the oldest child of 6 children, and I had a lot of responsibility that I didn't ask for. But as I've gotten older, I thank God that I had the opportunity to somehow use that. I started to say master, but I've never mastered that. Just using some of the things that were placed in front of me for my life. And I'll just say also that, you know, when people talk about unity, whatever that is, I think this is unity right here. What are we talking about when it comes to unity? When people say, you know, why is it that black people don't get along? Why is it? And I'm like, excuse me, do you get along with everybody in your family? So how are you going to get along with a stranger? Another black person, another Caucasian, Asian, Latino, and whatever. You don't get along with, I don't get along with myself sometimes. So I appreciate what you were saying, Gloria, in terms of, you know, us really, there is a difference between this and this. and it's not always working in our favor. We think that it is, but it's what we know, what you know, what each one of you know is different from what I know. And I recall a sister saying to me yesterday, Friday, wishing me a happy birthday, and she said, I don't know what's wrong with you though. You just seem so on edge, and you just seem like you've always been sarcastic. Thank you, Sharon. You said that to me too today. So I'm thinking, okay, if that's who I am, then you've known me for a long time. If I'm sarcastic, what does that mean?
Let's work with it.
And so if that's but hey, if I'm sarcastic, God knows there are people who can surely outshine me on all those levels. But I asked the sister, well, she said, I want you to be Zarina, the one that I always knew. And I said, excuse me? What? The Zarina that you always knew. And I didn't even know what that meant. I said, but let me say this to you, to that particular person. I said, this year has been very challenging for me. I've had 7 surgeries. I've lost my youngest sister, 2 of my closest friends, 2 of my male friends, and on and on. And there's so much more that's also going on. My son is he's got some serious health challenges. My grandson is not living in a stable situation. On and on. And so I'm saying, be Zarina? I'm being Zarina.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? I'm not being you. I'm being me. And so she said, well, okay. And I said, you know what? Let's just keep it moving. And then she said, well, now it sounds like you don't want to be friends. Okay. Yeah. I said, look, you have a good day. God bless you. Thank you for calling me, wishing me a happy birthday. And it went on, and I just said, don't say anything, Zarina. Just let her finish, and then just say, okay. I want to say something that's a bit different, particularly where young people are concerned. And when Oni was saying that they need to learn, well, you can't learn something if you haven't been taught.
Exactly.
And I'm afraid that with whatever, education is one thing and knowledge is another. And when I was teaching school, I surely would like to ask the students to write an essay. What is the difference between education and knowledge, or understanding, patience, thank you, I'm sorry, all those kinds of words. And I'm afraid that a lot of young people today, because of whatever their parents, grandparents, guardians, teachers, coaches, and whatever, are not focusing on those kinds of things. When I was growing up, and where I'm at this point in my life, it's sort of not just an either or, it's a both and.
Yes.
And I don't see young people with those things, with that understanding, because they're not getting it. Case in point, I was on the bus in DC. This was 2 or 3 years ago. I had already moved back to New Jersey. And there were 2 younger, I don't know how young they were, but younger black women on the bus up in the front in the senior disabled area with their 2 children, each child. And both of the women had cell phones, and they were both talking to each other too. So they were on their phone and they're talking to each other, and the children are sitting there, and like almost every other word was a cuss word.
Yes.
But then what got me was when they were talking to each other, and they, excuse my vernacular, and I almost don't even want this on the camera, but they were using some words that I'm sitting there across from them trying to figure out, God, who are they talking about? And they said, and I don't want that be in my life. She doesn't have any right to tell us how we're supposed to feed our kids and what we're supposed to do, and and they went on for about 5 minutes. They finally got off, and some of the people on the bus were kind of shaking their heads and looking at one another. But before they got off, they said, well, she needs to just pay attention to her husband. I don't need her to tell me what to do. They were talking about Michelle Obama.
Oh my goodness.
Michelle Obama, because they said her name. They said, and she doesn't need to tell me how to feed my kids. And I'm sitting there like, God, well, are they talking about their mother, their grandmother, their neighbor, the child's teacher, or what? And they said, and Michelle Obama, she can go to hell, and she can, and I'm like, that's who they're talking about? Oh my God. And I'm thinking, what did we miss? Where did we miss some of these young people who, I think, with some of the devices, the music, the films, the magazines, all the things. As Muslims, those of you that know in Quran, what did Shaitan say he would do? He would come from the right, he would come from the left, he would come from in front, he would come from behind. Somebody jumped in one time and said, and he's coming from the top. I said, no. God's on top. Never is he going to be able to come from the top. From the bottom, yes. But my point is that the ages that we grew up with a different mindset. We had parents or teachers or somebody. I think that's my phone. It is. We had some people who would say, they told us what to do. Before I got home, there were sometimes from church, someone had already called my mother because there was no cell phone.
Yes.
It was a landline. Already said, your son and your daughter and your son were walking near the train tracks.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how would they know that? How could they have seen me?
Yes, the village.
And was it me? Were they talking about me? And so my mother said, were y'all near the train tracks today and could we lie?
No.
If we try to lie, you will not get out of that lie.
No, you won't.
But now, when I hear young people speaking, they use such profanity. They say things that if I say to them, you know what? We weren't allowed to talk that way. Or I couldn't just say I wanted something and got it that day, if I ever got it,
Right.
So I think where young people, where we are concerned, we're in, whatever our generation is called, we were from the side where people were instructing us to respect our elders, respect ourselves, to do numerous things, and then teaching the younger ones, honey, no, you're not going to do that. That's not what you're going to be able to do here. Not today, not next week. So, but the ones that are behind us, and almost way behind us, it's a whole different world. But I do say, it's the same continuum that God started. He didn't start a new world, another world order, as some of those want to call it. This, from Adam and Eve or whomever, to where we are today, it's all been a flow on his part, on God's part. So.
Are the things you wish to hold on to, or when you feel your life's in need of something new, you can think therefore you are. You can reach that shining star at the rainbow's end. Life can be short or long. It's up to you. You don't need anyone to sing your song.